Welcome to a CISO's best friend, the Pentester. My name's Sean Atkinson, CISO for the Center for Internet Security, and I'm here with my best friend, Chris Elgee. Hey, Chris.
Hey, Sean. How's it going? Did you have a good time making it up here to the North Pole?
Took me a while, but I got here eventually.
You get a little farther to go than I do, but not much. Yeah, and I'm Chris Elgee. I'm with Counterhack Challenges. We, of course, make the Holiday Hack and other range products, and we also do a fair bit of pen testing. I'm glad to be here with Sean, one of my best friends.
So we want to talk about consorting with the enemy and getting past this us versus them ideal. So we'll add some reasons why. We'll talk about blue responsibilities. Chris will talk about red, and then we'll conclude. So let's move into why. So pen testing really only exists because it makes blue better, makes a defensive posture more resilient. And pen testing is not a red versus blue exercise. This is not a competition. What it is to understand and bring value to an organization through pen testing. And really the ultimate why here is to understand how we're going to do that. So we're building risk mitigating capabilities. We need pen testers to assess the strengths and weaknesses of that capability to provide value back. So it provides expert assessment utilizing TTPs to prove resiliency of controls and identify those weaknesses. So value is not generated from a blue perspective if we're going to restrict the scope on what pen testers can do. We need to open up. We need to allow pen testers access into our infrastructure beyond layers of defense in order to test those layers if any one of those were to fail. And success is not scored as a clean report. Really need to emphasize that this is not a grading exercise. This is to identify value and continual improvement. And for any organization, and we'll use the CIS Critical Security Controls 18, this should be the force multiplier of your security program. So let's move in then to blue responsibilities. So we have Violet here looking at her risk strategy. And what she did, and we'll move on to the responsibilities here, is with a restricted scope, thinking everything, not really thinking everything through from a risk perspective, blew up. And that's because there was not enough red and Violet turned into a blueberry. So what we need to do in order to avoid that is identify our own goals. We're going to look at compliance, we're going to understand business risk, and this is not security theater. This is not something to get a report, clean report, we're perfect in every way, shape, and form. That's not what we're trying to do. This needs scope, so we need to look at new web applications. We need annual review. We've got to look at on-premise infrastructure. We've got to look at cloud, physical, wireless, social engineering. Bring all of that to the table because in each layer of this infrastructure, weaknesses lie and we need to find them. We want permissive rules of engagement. So it's okay to have checkpoints. We want to have communication. We need this backwards and forwards between the two teams in order for us to become best friends. We're going to lay the cards on the table. We're forwarding alerts. We're looking at open source code. We've got known weaknesses that we're sharing through past reports and also change management to identify what we've done to improve since the last pen test. Planting flags is also good as well. This allows multiple stages of alerts and really findings to be exposed through this process. Having those flags identified shows which layer of our infrastructure either was weak or which was not found is strong. We want to gamify the experience. We want to check in with the pen test team and do the detection game. We found you at this level of alert and allowing us to report that back to the pen tester to know the avenues that are working and those that are not. The findings are not for shaming. We've got to appreciate that this is found by our friends, not the adversary. Who do we want to find these issues within our infrastructure? I'd rather it be a friend than an enemy. And we want to the continuity of the engagement really is make sure they come back and test again. Next time we will make it more difficult for you, friend. That's the adage we need to have with our pen test teams in order for them to come back and see what we've done to continuously improve. Over to you, Chris.
Thanks, John. as you go through that, it makes me think of Professor X and Magneto. They're enemies, but they're friends, and they keep coming back to that chess table over and over again. Maybe less of a good friend would be someone like Biff Tannen here, and we don't want to be Biff Tannen as pen testers, because you may end up in a pile of stink. The first thing we need to make sure we're doing on the pen test side is, back to what Sean said, they have goals. There are reasons they're having a pen test. Maybe it's compliance or something like that, but probably they actually want to know where their security concerns are as it relates to business risk, right? And that never means that the president wants to see how many shells you can get. The company president has no idea what domain administrator is, most likely. Although probably not true in Sean's case. It's very technical. We also want to check in all the time, right? At least once a day, we want to say, hey, this is how far we've gotten. These are the things we've tried. This is what we're going to try next. Or maybe in the middle of the day, hey, I just found this old service. I think I can throw this exploit at it and get a shell. Is now a good time? Is this an okay thing to test? Because we don't want to end up in a pile of manure. I will tell you, one time I did throw something at an edge router that I thought would be a cool exploit, and it ended up just kind of locking the thing up pretty hard. So this small financial was disconnected from the internet for a few minutes while they rebooted the device. Learn from my mistakes. How about this too? Make sure you do get caught at least once during the test, right? Like Sean said, this can be a game thing, back and forth. Hey, did you catch this? No, I didn't, but I saw that, and that gives them a win in the test, so that your report isn't just, here are all the things that you need to fix, but hey, here are the things that you're doing really well, and that can be super meaningful. And honestly, it makes the recommendations more easy to digest when there are things that were seen as doing well. And also too gives the organization some idea of what types of attacks they can detect, so it helps them tune their detection game. Don't be the naughty pen tester. If you're sending phishing lures about injured children or back to office requirements with pandemics, right? You are a bad pen tester and you're getting a lump of coal. So be sure you don't do that. And if you happen to find personally embarrassing information in the CFO's my documents folder, that's not in scope. Okay, even if it says everything's in scope, that's not cool. Let's just move along to something else. And then here too, we to gauge risk and to give recommendations that are actually going to be implementable by the organization, we have to communicate. If we see something like FTP being used back and forth between hosts to transfer data, and we say, hey, you got to shut that down, but we don't understand that that's core to how they do billing, then that's a worthless recommendation. So make sure you're talking a lot and understanding what really makes sense for that group. And also too, again, like Sean said, findings are not shaming. You aren't winning either, right? It isn't they win if it's a blank pen test report, and we win if there are lots of findings. There's no shaming. It's just about helping our friend and making sure that they best understand their risk and can move forward and grow in maturity. And then lastly, for the report, we definitely make a habit of sending draft reports to all our clients so that they've got a couple of weeks to look at it and say, geez, CounterHack, you misinterpreted this here. You marked it as a medium or a high, but really that's you were just looking at sample code. So it never goes to development or certainly production. So that gives the client a chance to make the report something even better.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chris. And ultimately it becomes, show me the risk. So we're having this pen test for a reason, right? This is the whole point. It's focused on the goals, not a report card. It's not an assessment of the security team and whether or not your job's valuable. It is. This is not the format that should take. This report is here to help us. So we want to help the pen testers by giving a wide scope, a capability in our organization in order to understand multiple levels of control. We want the opportunity to gauge our capability to what Chris said. That win allows us to understand where our controls are working and where they're not. And again, this is not us versus them. This is friends coming together to make things better.
Right. And on the pen test side, let's remember too that there is a reason there's a pen test, and we have to understand what their reasons are. And one more time, all the shells is not the reason. And then in terms of openness, if they're giving us source code to their web applications and full network maps, we need to make sure we're laying our cards on the table as well. These are the things I'm going to try. Here's where I struggled. Here's the exploit I tried to run, but it just wouldn't fire. These are all useful pieces of information for the client, and they're the ones in charge of this whole engagement. And lastly, make sure your recommendations are helpful, that they fit the organization, that you give short-term and long-term recommendations, and maybe some really cheap ones and some more involved, resource-intensive ones, because then the client gets things to pick from, and it's going to be more likely to be able to implement something that fits them well.
Exactly, exactly. Well said, Chris. And like we've said, red exists to make blue better, and blue needs red to find what is better. And as we move forward, that's the engagements we want to see. And so we'd like to thank you for being here with us at the North Pole. And it wasn't all bad, Chris. I actually got some swag as well.
Right.
So fantastic. Thank you, Chris.
See you guys around the con.
See ya.